Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Just those last few minutes of running around before I come to my live show, making sure that when I walk in that door tonight, that I'm going to have that feeling of everything is done. Everything that I needed to accomplish today is done. And look what I get to come home for. Not like it's a palace or anything, but just sweeping the floors, just doing up the dishes, cleaning your desk, right? Making your bed. It gives that, well, we're on the topic of comfortable, right? When you walk in that door at the end of a hard night, you know how it feels when your wife or kids are there to greet you, or there's a nice meal on the table. Or in my day and age, right? We talked about this a couple of times with customers and stuff this week and coworkers, is my father being the king of his own castle, right? And I come from a dynamic family, right? Not a very comfortable upbringing in all truth, right? And in that, though, my father, in creating his castle, right? Because it was his vision, how he wanted to bring his family along on his adventure, right? And we all make mistakes along the way. Each one of us wants to do better by our own parents, right? And I do believe my father did that, not to say that his parents were bad people, but this is a growing process, and not everybody is on the same stage of evolution. And you could just walk down the street and not even get a block and see that evidence, right? Consistently all the time. And you have to look at them and go, right? How comfortable are you in this moment? How comfortable am I in this moment? And this is where I tie up a little bit of that lesson we had, right? On gratefulness, right? To be able to be grateful for what we have, right? Like I said, it's not a castle. It's not magnificent. It's not the end game for me. But in my creation and where I'm at right now, right? In creating the best human being I possibly can, I want to be comfortable in my own skin. I want to be comfortable in my home when I get off at work, right? Now, wasn't where I was going with the comfortableness, but right, I was going to delve right back in a little bit of uncomfortable. It's not my own, but somebody else says, there's a gentleman I'm following. He's a singer, songwriter, uh, not really my genre of music, but truly my genre of music. And if you gave him an opportunity just to see in your taste whether or not he might resonate with you, you might find yourself in the same situation as I am when it comes to his content. And this is a gentleman named Ren. And he is blowing up on the internet. He's blowing up on YouTube. He's blowing up in his music. And he's been at this for a long time. He's well on in his way into his 30s now, right? But he's been doing this since his teens, struggling and striving and pushing himself forward, only going by his own blind faith in all truth. Like, I don't know how he did it, because there was so much pushback in his life. This gentleman got Lyme disease, didn't even know it for years, and had all these medical issues, right? But not only that, but struggling in his own mental health, right? And I would say a big part of the majority of the population is struggling with mental health. But because of, my husband was in the military, and when he came back he did a couple of tours in Croatia. When he came back from his last tour, I didn't know it until after we had already separated, but he got post-traumatic stress disorder. And I noticed the changes in him, right? But we never we never resolved any of that. We just ended the relationship. There wasn't really an opportunity. And because he was in the military, that was sound that was a sense of his masculinity, right? His tough guy image. He was in the military. You don't show weakness, you don't speak about the weakness. And because, you know, when he came home, I knew about post traumatic stress disorder when he got home, because only because all of our friends were suffering with that. And I was just amazed that my Stu was doing amazing and he was doing great. And truly, he wasn't, right? He was very uncomfortable because he was suffering with post traumatic stress disorder, and because of what other peoples would think, because of the risk of this career that he loved. So he loved being in the military, right? It made him so happy, and it served so well because of his love for people and people's love for him, and his idea of building community, where a lot of the skills that I have, I'd like to think a lot of those skills that I have in being a good friend and a kind person, in the being the first to offer some help. And even though I'm empathic and highly sensitive, that's a trait of mine anyway. But for me to actually recognize what an amazing trait it was, and it was something that was reflected by my husband, because everybody loved him. There were reasons that I picked him, right? And but he suffered in that post traumatic stress disorder, and I didn't even know. And he was home for a couple of years by the time we finally ended it for good, and I didn't even find out about it, right? Didn't even know anything about it, right? And I was very in tune to my husband. But my husband was very in tune to himself, and he hid these things, right? He hid it from me. He hid it from the, right? There's lots of psychologists, lots of padres, lots of people to talk to about your problems on base. I'm not even sure if he talked about it to his friends, right? But people caught on, right? And he got his diagnosis and he got pensioned off and stuff. But that was long after my marriage fell apart. And, so going back to Ren here, his music is absolutely crazy. He goes for the jugular, but not in a bad way, but in a way to wake up people to say, hey, we're not going to cure any of these issues. We're not going to be able to bypass ourselves, overcome ourselves, right? We're not even going to be able to deal with other people or be able to be around the people we care about because of these issues that people are hiding, right? And that idea of chameleon, because this is something, as empaths, we do very well. We shape our personalities to suit whoever we're sitting in, right? Sitting in front of or having a conversation with. We pick up these talents along the way. It's a coping mechanism too, right? You can find a commonality with everybody. But it was a way for me to be safe, and it gives me a gift now, right? But how I received it, well, maybe that's another story, right? But Ren is talking about his mental health issues, and this has been going on now for a couple of decades. I remember some highly um up there in sports coming forward, hockey players, ice skaters. I remember this one woman in particular. She had the most beautiful reddish curly hair. And she was so brave and just coming forward with their traumas and saying, let's talk about mental health, right? Let's talk about mental health. Let's delve in. Let's just not solve the symptoms. Let's find out what's going on and how we can, right? Is there something the government can do? Is there something that we can do as a community in talking about it, right? Is there somebody that we can trust, right? Because that idea, we're afraid of what people are going to think, what people are going to say. We're afraid of our careers. Like my husband was afraid of losing his careers, and he would much rather get rid of his marriage than have his wife see the, right? I would have caught on. I hadn't caught on, and been a couple of years, and I'm really, really surprised. But maybe it was just maybe I did catch on, but I wasn't willing to look at it, right? Maybe it was bigger than me. Maybe I felt like I was crossing my husband's boundaries because he was trying so hard to hide it that, I didn't want to disrespect him by pushing him on a subject that, right, that even if he didn't want to talk about it, I think he truly did need to talk. I think, when we're talking this week on this subject of comfortability, we only have 5 more minutes before I have to run off, but we'll carry this on tomorrow. Maybe it's a little bit more cheerier because it's comfort, right? It's comfort. And tomorrow's Friday. Is tomorrow Friday? Yes, tomorrow's Friday. So we're going to come in tomorrow and we're going to have a positive outlook on comfort, right? Because it's been heavy this week. And comfort shouldn't be a heavy word, but comfort is what we cover ourselves. Comfort is the cozy blanket. It's right. It's our thumb in the mouth. It's the soother, right? It's the codependency. It's not making a move without other people's permissions. It's not giving yourself permission. It's not you saying, "Oh my goodness, I know this is scary, but it has to be done." How can you do it? And if you can't do it, what baby step can you do right now to better set yourself up so that maybe in the next hour when you're ready to do it, or the next day or next year when you're ready to do it, it might be an easier decision because you took a little baby step that's going to help you out a little bit along the way. I'm a true believer in baby steps. Lots of this movement I've made, it has been in baby steps. But Ren, because of the love of his followers, because of those detrimental, crucial, loving relationships that he built up with those song reviewers, people who listen to artists and then criticize or critique, right? Not criticize, but critique. Maybe they criticize too. That they fell in love with Ren. And because they fell in love with Ren's songs got out there. And none of his songs were right. He was a independent. He wasn't right. He was struggling. He was putting himself in his discomfort. And now, right, a month before his first album, pre-release on Spotify today, he is number two because of the love of his audience, because of this community that he's built for himself, that love him so much that they are making this happen for him. And he's only at number 2 now, but you can guarantee he will be number 1. And he's up against some big people as an independent. And he'll be able to call his shots from now on, right? Because of that Lyme disease he has, because of the mental health issues, because he put his voice forward, because he stepped forward. And I don't mean just tell somebody's story, but it so inspires me, right? It so inspires me, and it's a evidence for myself that I can do it, right? He started at 17 years old and he's hitting it at 33. He's hitting it, right? Who am I to say after a few years, right? Or a half a dozen years, whatever it was in this process, maybe it was even a lifetime, that I should be complaining in any way, right? Because he got his. I'll get mine, right? If I don't stop, if I'm willing to be genuine, if I'm willing to talk about those difficult, right, subjects, because I understand it's through my pain, right, that my purpose will come. And just like Ren found his purpose, and right, connecting with people who so needed to connect with him, and he's going to, right, hit even more people, and he's going to spread like a great, magnificent vaccinal type virus. And it's incredible. And I think each one of us, right, if we have that capability, we have an opportunity, right? Don't kill yourself if you don't want to do it, if you're not compelled to do it. But if you feel it, right, to talk about it a little bit. And even if it's just to a friend, or maybe it's, you know, healing for yourself and you still not brave enough to bring it to the surface like my husband didn't. Maybe in your comfort for other people, maybe being that shoulder for somebody else, that you can find that opportunity to heal in yourself and not have to rely on other people. Because lots of times, right, as empaths, as highly sensitives, right, we're going it alone, not necessarily because we want to, right? But I wasn't going to say this, but I have to. But because we have to, and I'm going to delve into that thought when I was going to say something else, and that just washed right in. So I'm going to give it some contemplation, right? When I come back in to watch my live again on my way to work, right? That's what I'll be doing. And hopefully we can come in tomorrow with a little bit happier, lighter perspective on this magnificent word, comfort, that ignites. It truly does ignite, right? Kind of like a little bit of the kindling. Maybe it's a little bit of that rocket, right? But we don't bypass, right? That rocket is to dive in. That rocket is to get us to courage. That rocket is to get us to that comfort, right? But we still have to take in the lesson. So, right, I'll be back in a few minutes to take in mine, and I'll be back in tomorrow, right, to see what else comes to the surface. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. See each other tomorrow.